Hi Jen, welcome to the show. How are you?
I am not too bad. And yourself?
Yes, I'm also good. Kim, how about you?
I am good, thank you. I've got a tiny little bit of a sniffly cold, so if you hear me, I will try to mute myself if I do sniff, but otherwise I'm good.
Yeah, funny that you mentioned that because I'm also recovering from a cold that I caught like last week. So yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it's going around at the moment.
Yeah, I was about to say that it's the time of year.
No, it's fall and winter. It's just
Yeah. So, yeah, a huge thank you and welcome to the podcast. We love hearing people's stories and hearing people's journeys. So, I can't wait to dive into, your journey into tech. And I actually want to take you all the way back to November 2020 when you attended codebar for the first time. Would you be able to tell me how you found out about codebar?
yeah. So at that point in time, I was really struggling if I wanted to continue my career as a teacher. It was during like the pandemic, right? And then I was unfortunately let go from my school. Because well, they were like, there's just too much uncertainty. And then so yeah, it was, rather unfortunate situation, but I think, in the end, everything all worked out. So, like during the spring of that year, 2020, I had already decided that I may want to explore other avenue, and then tech came up because it was also during the time where like a lot of like virtual meetings such as this, Zoom and Google invites like all of these new, I guess, quote unquote, online video conferencing software started to pop up, and then that was sort of like my gateway that piqued my interest. And then I just started exploring on Facebook, like because Facebook is, they have like a lot of different like tech groups. And then I just literally typed into the Facebook search bar, like tech groups for newbies, or like something along the lines of that. And then I found a few, and then I joined. And then I think someone mentioned about codebar because I was based in Europe at the time and I wanted to like remain in Europe, and codebar, the name popped up. And then I was like, oh, okay. It sounds, interesting. It sounds like it could align to, what I potentially want to do. So yeah. And best of all, it was like, remote at the time. And, it was also like very beginner friendly. And so yeah. So I was like, why not?
Well, I'm so sorry to hear you were let go from your teaching job, but pleased to hear that you feel you landed on your feet. So you Googled it, you found us, and then what happened? Did you come to an event? Did you attend online?
It was a virtual pair programming session, and then I had never like I did I like my back like I came from like a zero, like a non-technical background, so I didn't know what pair programming was. Like at the point in time, I had self-studied a little bit, but it wasn't really going quite to the pace or the direction that I had wanted it to, because like tech, like the topics being so diverse, and there's just like so much to learn. Like it's hard to like decide, like this is the point where I want to start, and these are like the languages and whatnot. So even though I had self-taught a little bit, but like I said, I still felt really bewildered, but like just like it's just too much, like a bit overwhelmed. Like I didn't have a clear picture of what tech is about in the industry. And the like like more like a guided path, right? For example, if you go to school, there's like a curriculum, unit one is this, and then right, and then you'd have like, coming from a teaching background, like it's always very structured.
So what is pair programming?
So pair programming is basically two people, they pair up together, whether in person or remotely, that can be discussed. And usually one person would be the driver, the other one would be the navigator. The driver, I think, yeah, it's the person who types. And then the navigator is the person that basically gives instructions, that tells the driver what to type. You basically break up the problem solving task. So one person does all of the thinking. So like, oh, so step one, we should do, A, B, C, D, E, right? And then the driver will just, okay, step one is this, types it out. It's a way to learn, I guess, because you basically talk aloud about your thought process. So that's basically what the navigator does, is like, the person just basically talks aloud basically, and then the driver just types out.
It's particularly useful as well when you've got a really experienced developer and a less experienced developer, because you can really learn from each other. And also typically you would change role every, say, half an hour, so that you're both taking on each role, but you get a bit of a break from like maybe the thinking part and then just the typing part and stuff. So yeah, it is something that I know a lot of people find extremely beneficial, particularly early on in their career for their learning. One thing I'm really interested in is you said that, you then discovered tech and, you wanted to start learning it, but you signed up having never written code before, which I think is so brave because it's such an alien world. It is learning a new language. It's not a spoken language, it's a computer language. Was there something prior to that that made you think, oh, maybe tech is a career for me?
I I suppose at the time it was really where like there was like a push towards like tech, right? It being like, at the time there was the pandemic and everything was going, either remotely or virtually hybrid, along the line. So like they were just really looking like yeah, like the environment at the time, people were just looking for ways to like connect online and to do everything online. So that sort of like opened up a new portal to be explored. And then yeah, I guess like the timing for me, as I guess suppose it was like which is a good push, so because to be honest, I never really yeah, I never thought like I could stick it out with teaching for like the rest of my life. So that was like always in the back of my mind. So I knew I had always wanted to explore something a bit different, and something I suppose that values work-life balance a little bit more, less, behavioral management. Yeah, and just a bit more, flexibility over how you structure your hours of the workday as well.
Yeah, it's a very different structure, being a teacher and being a developer. So what are you doing nowadays work-wise?
So I'm actually, so I relocated to Germany for my job. So I'm now in Germany and I work for the scale-up company in the green energy sector as a junior software developer. Yeah, it's right now it's a lovely company. I really enjoy working with my colleagues so far. Also because like everyone's more or less within the same age group. So I think that also makes like, the whole learning and the attitude towards learning and also communication, a bit more aligned than suppose, if you like if the age demographic is a bit more spread out.
Nice. And congratulations on getting a job. I know the market at the moment is incredibly challenging and really hard for junior developers. So a huge congratulations. So from the moment you attended codebar in 2020 to, this year getting your job, what was that journey like? Did you use any other resources? Was it just codebar, self-taught? Like, could you explain that journey to us, please?
So I guess I just wanted at that time, I just wanted to explore what CodeBar was about. And obviously, I knew that this journey was going to be difficult and challenging, and I will need some sort of like support and community. So like that to me is very important. And that was also like another thing that yeah, that really drew me to want to like, keep going, is like the community is just really welcoming, it's diverse, people are, they're not judgmental, like they don't they don't really care about, oh, I shouldn't say that, like as in like the focus is more about like, oh, okay, like how are you transitioning to the tech industry, not so much like, oh, like why did you leave your previous career and whatnot, right? And also as a result, of like attending co-bar sessions virtually and online, I was able to make friends actually. So anywho, so yeah, so I joined CodeBar and I decided, yeah, I think this is a great organization where I could possibly, establish my network of support and, get help just to, like sort out like how, basically give me like a pathway, like, sort of like a quote unquote guided curriculum, because there's a mentor and then you can ask any questions. So I really like that part, and that was something that was missing when I was doing self-teaching. And then after that, it was end of November, beginning of December of 2020, I enrolled myself in a boot camp called She Codes. So I wanted to try, I just wanted to try it out, right? To see how I get on with coding and programming in general. And then from the bootcamp, I created 3 projects from scratch: dictionary app, and then a weather app using React and vanilla JavaScript. And then towards the end of it, so this is like spring of 2021, I thought to myself, oh, like this could work for me. But like I guess at the time, like we've only like from bootcamp only like a fraction of tech was explored, so like I didn't have like all of the pieces. It's kind of like, oh, I just knew, okay, for example, like you know, in React you have like, you know, components and hooks, but like I just didn't understand how like all the pieces fit together necessarily per se from beginning to end. It's kind of like, you know, you were just like thrown into a pool and then you kind of have to like, you know, swim a little, but you don't know like the purpose, the how and the why, like nothing was quite fitting. So at the time, so like spring of that year, I also had to go back to Taiwan for a little bit because of COVID. And then like, you know, I hadn't seen my family in a really long time. So I had to move back to Taiwan for a little bit. I could have gone back to Canada as well. And plus I hadn't seen my family in a like several years. So, you know, and then because of that, so there was a time difference, right? Because in Asia, it's like 7 or 8 hours ahead. So I was not, so for like 7 or 8 months, I wasn't able to attend any of the codebar sessions due to the time zone difference. And then at the time, like when I was back in Taiwan, I was like, you know, back to like teaching English just to save up because I knew I wanted to come back to Europe, just like the work-life balance is like chef's kiss. Yeah, so and then like you know, I was like sort of, you know, that period where you in your head you're like, oh, should I like just go all in? But you know, there's like a lot of uncertainty, right? So I wasn't sure if you know if you know devoted all of my time, energy, and effort and resources into it, am I going to get some sort of concrete result? But then at the same time, if I don't go all in, then I will never find out. So, you know, it was just like, oh, that fine line. And then I guess finally it was winter of 2022. I decided, yeah, like, you know what? Like, you know, screw
Life's too short.
yeah, like what do I have to lose, right? And I just went all in and then I started doing more research about, you know, the different groups, the support groups that are out there for free that I could join, you know, something that would be not so limited to the time zone. And then, you know, there was a Slack tech community channel called Code Buddies that I had stumbled upon. And then I joined it and then on there, I posted my very first ask, which was I need help to revamp my resume so that it's more tailored and suited towards the tech industry. You know, there were a few people answered, and one of them was my previous mentor, who is literally an angel. So he answered it, and he's like, "Yeah, of course, I can. You know, I'd be more than happy to give you a hand, help you out." And everything just started rolling from there. So yeah, so I paired with him. So that was like I guess my first pair programming outside of codebar. And then, you know, he looked over my resume, you know, asked me like a few, you know, questions to gauge my level and whatnot. And I guess he must have, you know, enjoyed collaborating with me because yeah, so he just took me on as a mentee. And then, you know, he asked me like, you know, what are your interests, you know, your thoughts about starting a personal project. And then I was like, oh yeah, you know, I really do enjoy traveling. So we started a travel API together. And literally like just went from there. And then we would pair program at least twice a week, usually for 2 hours, sometimes 3 or 4, depending on how into it we were. So yeah, and because it was one-on-one, and then because the learning environment was just was really safe. So I was free to like ask any little or stupid, in my opinion, you know, I thought would, you know, stupid questions to him. And yeah, he would just, I don't know where he has the patience from, you know? Was just yeah, and then that was where I solidified some of, you know, the foundational programming skills, you know, whether it be well, it was mostly problem solving, like, you know, your attitude towards problem solving, how do you break down a task, and what do you do when you are, you know, stuck, you know, debugging, reading error messages, and all of that. Yeah, and I guess, I realized, you know, I'm very fortunate to have met such an incredible, just yeah, it's just literally an angel, right? I realize I'm very fortunate to be in that situation. Not everyone's transitioning journey is like that, and not everyone's fortunate to have met a mentor like I have. So, but because of that, like the experience was really positive, and then I just thought, oh, like it's a sign from the universe. Like, you know, I've just been given this help, you know, out of nowhere. It's well, although I suppose like, you know, a little bit of like manifestation, but I just felt like it's a sign, you know, I need to hold on to it. So yeah, and then so he mentored me for about 15 months, and then we had built up my portfolio with the travel API. At first it was mostly backend, you know, learning about like database and, you know, SQL, right? And then connects, and then learning about how to like debug, read the console logs. From there, we progressed to the front end a little bit more. And then I decided I was like, I'm gonna go back to school to get a master because I really want to do this and, get a job. At the time, there's just like a lot of boot camp graduates, right? And also like starting 2022, the economy was, sort of sliding downwards, was really tanking. And then also like while he was mentoring me for the 15 months, I had also, started to send out applications. It was all of them rejections, but it was just also a good way for me to build up interviewing skills in the tech industry because it's quite different. Yeah.
Sorry, just can I cut in there? You've said a lot of things that I want to ask you questions about, but I was trying not to talk over you. So you've talked about debugging, that kind of thing. I mean, I think I know what debugging means. Could you just walk us through a bit more about what exactly it means?
Yeah, debugging is basically when you're running an application and then you get like an error like in the console. It'll just tell you an error because it'll literally say error and it'll be in red like screaming at you. And then your software program application whatever crashes, right? Because it's not getting the output that you want. So basically from that cryptic error message, you have to figure out, oh, like because basically the error message is trying to tell you what is wrong or what it thinks it could be wrong, right? Sometimes it could be like a syntax error, right? So for example, you're missing like a semicolon or braces or indentation sometimes. So that's really simple. But other times would be like you're something wrong with your actual code. Like this code you forgot to put like a catch error block there and whatnot, right? So from that error message, you have to like dig deeper to actually understand what it is trying to tell you because depending on the language that you choose, sometimes so like I started with Node.js and JavaScript. Like the error messages sometimes it's not too bad, but again, as a beginner, they all seem very cryptic. Like you don't understand. It's like, what do you mean? Like this, item not found. This is not found, right? Something. So like, what does that actually mean? So like, then you'd have to go on to like Stack Overflow and like just literally copy and pasting the error message, and then hopefully someone will have encountered a similar problem from the past and then just go, oh, okay, so this error actually means that. And then, based on, other people's suggestion, and then you just, yeah, so and then you tweak and then it's like, okay, and then you run your program again. Does it work? Okay, it doesn't. And then so just repetition like that until you figure out what's wrong.
Interesting. Thanks for explaining. And my second question. So you've just said that interviews for tech jobs are a bit different. Could you explain to me how they're different to a normal interview?
I would like to make the clarification that it very much depends on the company and the company culture as well, because for the most part, for the bulk of it, most companies that I have interviewed with and as well as hearing stories from other friends who are developers or also friends who have transitioned from the tech into the tech industry from a non-technical background. The majority of the companies, the first step is these code challenges from like Leet Code War, which I will admit flat out I am not a fan, not keen at all. But unfortunately that is just the trend for a lot of companies these days because it's just a quick filter to see like who, I guess from the company's perspective, it's an efficient way to, because like with the current job market, you have like hundreds of applicants to one posting, right? So it's just a very cost efficient way for them to filter out, quote unquote, who can, for example, can you do like a for loop or like a dot sort or, dot filter, whatever, and then how do you apply it, right? And usually they would be timed to similar questions, question 1, 2, and then you'll have like an hour to solve. So you basically, write down some code and then, you'd hit run and then it'll have like tests. It'll run against like all the test and edge cases that's already been pre-programmed. And then yeah, and then after that, again, depends on the company. They'll have like, some multiple choice questions as well, sort of asking you like, okay, so this is the situation, which method would you use? Or more like algorithmic. So like, search, it's like a binary search or tree search. Yeah. So that would usually typically be the structure. It's extremely stressful because you have that time constraint and then you're giving actually like quite a chunk of workload to just plow through within that time frame. And sometimes like usually most of the time, I mean in my case certainly like I would always, yeah, I would never have enough time to finish everything.
Interesting. Thanks for explaining. Like I said, I've never interviewed for a tech job before, so I completely cut you off. You were just saying that you decided to go for a master's.
Yeah, so I have just finished it, defended my thesis. Well,
Congratulations.
was on the company bus attending the company event in Berlin. So and that was literally the day after I had moved to Germany as well.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, literally like no break. And so yeah, so I had done my master's program in London at Queen Mary University. It was information studies of the computer science program. It was what was the degree? It was more. It was a conversion degree. So it's targeted for people like myself whose previous education background was not in technology.
Oh, okay.
So it was a year long. It was very intense because it was only a year long. And then so yeah, so 2 semesters and then 3 months, and then the last 3 months was yeah spent on writing the thesis.
Congratulations on completing that. One of the things to me that kept popping up in, your journey and your answer was, community and people. You got involved in all these communities that had a huge impact, and you had this mentor, for 15 months. Would you say that, communities and the mentor was crucial to you entering the tech industry?
Because it's not just about transitioning careers, right? It's just anything when you're sorry anytime when you're trying to do something different and for the first time and you have no clue whatsoever the direction that you should head. A community is there to give you a positive. I should say there are lots of heaps of communities out there, but to find the right community that suits your needs, yeah, so, which means that you really have to like dig deep within yourself too, like ask yourself like what are the things that matter to me the most, when I'm looking for what am I looking for in a particular community, right? So yeah, there's some like digging deep within yourself, I suppose.
And you mentioned, interviewing and that it is different. And, we may have people listening who are about to go for their first tech interview, or, they may have just had it. What advice would you have for those people?
I guess for me, oh yeah, so via codebar, I was able to meet this other girl, and then we paired up together for 6 months, practicing doing lead code type questions. Yeah, so like once a week for about like, an hour and a half to 2 hours, depending on the problem and the time that we had available. So yeah, I would just say that try and find, like someone else from the community who's also going through a similar phase that you are, and try to like buddy up with the person, so to just practice, lead code type questions. Like even if it's so what I did with my friend was we did it once a week, like I said, an hour and a half to 2 hours. And yeah, so from that you can also you can practice pair programming as well. And it just gives you, exposure to the types of questions that could be asked of you on the first round of technical challenge. Yeah, and second of all, like it for me, it was motivation because if you had to like do these questions, they're very dry, I have to say. I have not met a developer, even someone who's like, 10, 15 years into their software engineering career who enjoys lead code type questions. Not a single developer. But again, like for me, that was motivation because I had a buddy and a friend, and then so it was like, it just felt, like instead of like doing it on your own, it was just yeah. So like get to collaborate, practice pair programming, and upped my motivation a little to want to actually do these dry lead code questions.
And interviewing is scary. I'm, what am I, 11 years now as a developer, and my mind will still go absolutely blank in an interview. And I've tried so many like tools to like not make that happen, but my mind just goes completely blank and I just freeze and I absolutely hate it. So yeah, like I say, I'm 11 years in and still hate it to this day.
I guess there's also like a lot of different websites. If you literally just Google, like free prep questions for, tech interviews, beginner, something, a combination of that sort. And then there are tons of like free resources out there that would give you like these, already generated questions for you to practice from. Or actually ChatGPT, I do have to say, since the arrival of
Yeah.
GPT. I do use the paid version because it actually does make a difference between, like GPT 3.0, 3.5, and 4.0, because I have the 4.0 and it still has its flaws, but it does make a difference because you can just prompt it by giving context and then it'll give you the questions that you prompted it with, and there you can like practice.
I'm intrigued because I know there's lots of controversy around, AI, ChatGPT, and oh, it's going to take our jobs. So now you're a developer, and you're in tech. What are your thoughts on, ChatGPT and AI, and is it going to take your job?
Not for the time being. So this is just, my humble opinion. Not for the time being, not for like the next several years, I would say, or even a decade, because at the end of the day, it's still humans that are programming these AI languages. So you see, like until it gets to a point where the AI can start evolving, which will be decades away, I think. Until then, I don't well, at least maybe I'm a little bit more optimistic. Like I said, however, it's still a human, behind, like all of these, like the different algorithms, like linear regression, the k-nearest neighbor, these techniques that that are being used to come up with these, prediction methods and whatnot. Still, like there's still a human behind it, right? So yeah, I don't think my job will be taken anytime soon.
Yeah, so you don't think the robots are going to rise up and do away with us anytime soon?
Not anytime soon. In a couple of decades, perhaps. But I don't, yeah, not in the not like within the next 5 years. I don't think so.
It's funny because whenever I do use ChatGPT, I'm always extremely polite to it. And even my partner laughs at me and he's like, you don't need to be that polite. And I'm like, one day when they take over, they'll know I was one of the polite ones.
Well, actually, to be honest, because so when you say polite, do you mean like please and thank you?
Yeah, every
Yeah,
time.
I do that too because I don't know. Maybe there was like some research article saying out there like because like basically GPT it's trying to mimic natural human language, right? So natural human language, we do say typically say please and thank you, right? So I don't know. So there was like an article somewhere I read where like if you say please and thank you, it'll also like influence how it responds back to you as well.
I also think that if I stop saying please and thank you, will I then stop doing it in real life? Like if I start being, yeah, I don't know. There's probably loads of psychology or like loads of work, like research being done at the moment of how like humans are like interacting with it. But yeah, I think I'm a bit like worried that like if I stop saying please and thank you, will I then stop doing that in real life? And I obviously don't want to stop saying please and thank you in real life.
I guess for me, it's more about like I wanted to give me the best possible answer.
Yeah.
Yeah, perhaps like you mentioned, it's a bit more psychological, but I just, if even though it's still, a machine, it's all math and algorithm, but I don't know, like, but again, it's mimicking off of, natural human language, right? So because of that aspect, I'm like, yeah, maybe if I, be polite to it, it'll give me like better answers.
Yeah, fair.
So I just want to touch upon what you said about, the robots taking over our jobs. So you've started out as a teacher, you've now retrained into tech. So it's possible you could have a third career, by the end of your working life. Any ideas what it's going to be?
I haven't thought about it that much in advance yet, to be honest. Probably something technology related, just because I think technology has now become so intertwined with human lives that it's literally unescapable. I don't think, we can go back in time being nerdy here, backwards compatibility where we could go back in time and just like ditch technology completely. Like, yeah.
I think the really exciting thing about being in tech is that, the job you're doing in 15 years, even 10 years, may not exist at the moment. Like, because tech is always evolving and changing so much that, like you said, you may still be in tech, but the job might not exist yet.
Yeah, it's just although I feel like it's these jobs, it's just like a new spin on an old job title.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
that's fair.
at least based on my observation so far, it's just like, oh, like give it like a shiny new title, but it's actually doesn't differ that much from, what it was before.
Yeah, fair. Yeah, fair. And before we wrap up, there's one thing I'm really interested to know is that, you are now a junior developer, and you've had this long journey teaching yourself, joining a boot camp, getting a mentor, joining these communities. For anyone thinking of entering the tech industry, what advice would you give to them?
I think just perseverance, grit, and just put yourself out there. Like no matter the rejection, like literally you have nothing to lose. Just put yourself out there and manifest and it will come to you. But you have to have grit and perseverance and discipline because like each day, how are you going to structure your day? Like how do you decide where your focus of learning is going to be, right? So there's like lots of decisions that needs to be made. So
Oh, perfect. Thank you. And how can people connect with you online if they want to now?
they can always find me on LinkedIn.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jen, for coming to speak to us today. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you so much, Kimberly and Phoebe, for taking the opportunity to have me on your show as a guest. Yeah, it's definitely been a pleasure, and I'm very honored to be here because codebar has done so much for me over the last 4 years since I transitioned, and I wanted to give back to the community, and it's time.
Well, it's been a pleasure to have you, and thank you very much for humoring my very basic questions like what's debugging?
No, no worries. I'm sure like the reverse would be true, if I were trying to learn something about law.
Thank you very much, Jen.